We were flown in by helicopter to the top of the ridge, and we did line construction for over an hour or so. Made it down, we tied it in, and then right here is where we're going to tie in and anchor it, and then get to work and start working down the hill, because we saw crews and engine companies from the bottom working themselves up. So we figured we can tie in with them in no time, because it's going to be easier working downhill. We'll catch them before they come uphill. So it was going to be an easy deal, and then just widen it out, improve our line, and we'll be out of here.
Welcome. We're here today with two members of Crew 22 to talk about the Glen Allen Fire that happened 25 years ago. During the Glen Allen Fire, we lost 2 of our firefighters, and 2 others were severely burned. And anyone that was on the fire that day is going to carry that with them the rest of their lives. We have Roy Rodriguez, who was on the crew, and Gabe Larios. The reason we're talking about the Glen Allen today is we're also, as a department, introducing the incident within the incident. And the Glen Allen Fire was certainly the foundation for that.
So what I remember is we took a small break, maybe 5 minutes, up on the Altadena Horse Trail, which is going to be just about 100 feet above or so from where the burnover occurs. We talked about a plan, and the plan was basically just to continue the line that we were already putting in. One of the things that I do remember about it, it was very easy line to put in. We were in a decomposed granite there on the front country, and that's really nice when you're swinging a tool. I didn't factor in, this is the beginning of my second season, fire season with the camp, so it didn't factor into me that had the need for egress, that was going to hamper it. I just realized that it was nice to swing a tool on. So we stopped, we took the break. The saw team went down below me. I was the first swinging tool. They're punching some line in. They get to about, maybe about 30 feet in, and I'm just scraping, putting in 18 inches of line there. We had just asked for a water drop previous to that, so the fire had really knocked down. Again, we had a small little backing fire, nothing that you would even be concerned with at all. At this point, the thing in my brain, being so limited, was when are we going to get out of here, and what's going on with the other fires, because this fire's out for all intents and purposes. So yeah, we're punching in line, we're dropping down in, and we get probably about maybe 3 minutes worth of work in, and we're scratching some line. And it's the first time I heard a voice of concern from the top. It's, hey, you guys have fire on the other side of the ridge there. So I remember taking a look over. I don't see anything down below us. I don't really see anything that's going to alarm me. So I'm like, okay, what does that mean? So I continue to go to work, actually. So I like, okay, we got fire on the other side. Somebody identified something. About 6 or 7 seconds later, I hear, hey, you guys need to get out of there. There's fire on the other side. So I turn and I look now I can see the slope start to go up on the other side, and it's going up. It looks like it's probably about 5 acres, but it's putting out some pretty good heat, pretty good flame on the other side. So I turn and I'm like, okay, I got a direction now, and the direction's, you need to get out. So I turn and I start to walk out, and about 6 or 7 seconds later after that, I hear, hey, you guys need to get out of there with a lot more urgency. You guys got fire below you. So that was the first time where I realized that, hey, this thing is now underneath us, and it's coming, and it's going to impact us if we don't get out of here. So I remember turning back and trying to find the saw team. I climb over the top of a little spur ridge, and I look down and I see the saw team below me, and I remember seeing Chris Herman, who's got the saw in his hand. I don't remember seeing Chris Barth at this time, but Chris Herman shows me the saw, and I remember saying, like, hey, drop the saw, let's get out of here. So the second he drops the saw and he starts to make his way back out, I climb back up that little spur ridge, and it seems like about 3, 4, 5 seconds later, the fire's on us. So in between that time, I had heard that large roar that they talk about, that freight train, that all that energy is coming up from the bottom, and it's making a pretty good push on us. I get about 4 or 5 seconds in from that when I see Chris Herman down the bottom, and what I realized at this point is that my feet are scrambling in the decomposed granite. I got no footing. I can't get out the line that we just scratched in, and I could see the horse trail that's only, maybe 30 feet above us. So I mean, the horse trail is right there, but I can't make any headway. So what I decide is I'm going to go up into the black, and I get about 4 or 5 steps up into the black, and that's when the fire impacts us. So all that loud noise, all that energy that's coming up, I remember when it actually hits, that everything gets quiet for a second. So I think the energy is upon us now, and I remember opening my eyes at one point and seeing nothing but orange all around me, And you know, I realized at that point that the fire's on us and that it's doing what it's doing. This was given to me maybe about a year and a half ago. Somebody came across this in one of the training bunkers, and they were it was part of the investigation, so it was taken from me. So about a year and a half ago, I used to always tell the Glen Allen story and try to match it up with what I saw and then kind of what I experienced. And getting a hold of my gear, I was actually pretty excited to see like how, you know, burned it was. And so the first thing I got to was my brush coat, and I took it out and I was looking at it, and you could see very little browning on it. Not a whole lot of areas where it actually was impacted by direct flame for a great duration. I took a look at my pants and the web gear. The web gear had a lot of plastic on it, and that was pretty melted. And then I got to my helmet, and the helmet actually had some pretty good melting to it. So I mean, if you think about just in terms of how you're standing on a hillside and how heat rises, it's one of the things I use to teach the recruits now, is about just stay low if you can. If your shelter is not accessible, or you didn't have time to grab your shelter, whatever happened, you can get down low, protect your airway. But I mean, this is a pretty good, I stayed on 4s for the entire time, so you get a pretty good idea of how hot it was up top and then what was going on a little bit lower. I did receive burns to 43% of my body, and if you look at the picture that the Nomex paints, probably some radiant heat and some convected heat, and a little bit of direct flame. So it kind of changed and shifted my story a little bit to what I saw and what I experienced, and it paints a little bit better picture out here.
When I eventually came out, I was down by where the cross is, and we noticed a spot fire behind me on the other side of the canyon, and it took from just that time to make it up to here before fire was all the way running to the left of me. The entire bowl was going and involved in fire. So like I said before, probably less than 40 seconds from the time we noticed a spot fire to the time that we're being impacted by fire. So I made my way up to here, and coming up, trying to get my shelter out, make it to the top here, start pulling out my shelter. Heat, smoke, everything's impacting me at this time. Trying to make it, trying to follow the guys that are already ahead of me. And as I'm coming out, they disappear into the smoke. I start feeling the heat wave, get my shelter all out, realize I can't go any further. This isn't a good thing. Get into my shelter, or partial deployment, and then come over into this cut bank here, which has already been burned out. Deploy my shelter down here, partial, get impacted by fire. Can hear my crew below me getting impacted by fire, knowing something's not right. Stay here for about a minute or so. Once I get out of my shelter, people start coming out of the smoke, and this is where we do an accountability report here, figure out who's missing, and what we need to do as far as getting help up to our location and get back over to the side and try to help out and find my buddies. Did a head count and noticed that we had 4 of us that were unaccounted for on the crew. So basically trying to put a plan together of what we are going to do. Well, first we had to find them, because you couldn't see where the victims were at. So kind of myself and Steve Cooch had got together and kind of went down over the side of the hill to figure out what we could do, gathered up some waters with us, and we came across Art Rueska, and we could see that he was critical, and we wanted to get him out as soon as we could. And I know we needed help. I didn't have a radio at this time, and that's about the same time that I looked over and saw Gabe, and went over to Gabe to do what I could with Gabe, and stuck with him for a while. And once I assisted him back up to the top of the hill to the trail, I could still see that I needed help, and at that time I'd grabbed the radio and try to get assistance up there. As he was coming back from 82 Alpha, he had a load of water. He was coming back to assist us, and this all happened while he was going to get us some water. And he heard the conversation, and he finally got on the radio and said, I know where they're at, and have everybody direct all contact through the helicopter and the IC. And he was going to take charge of basically being the incident commander or the liaison between us and incident command at that point. After assisted Gabe up to the hill, I met with another crew, told them that take care of Gabe. I need help down below with Art Rueska, and I still have 2 more missing. So basically went down with gathered up some more waters because I knew these guys were gonna need anything that I could give them at that point. Went back down to Art Rueska and talked to Steve kind of about a plan of how we're gonna try to get him out of here as soon as we get help. And then notice Chris Barth down in the bottom of a spur ridge, disoriented, and decided to go down and assist him however I could. Stayed with him probably for 45 minutes until another crew showed up, and just trying to do whatever I could for him. And then once he was stabilized there on the ridge, came back up and went around to the other side to see if I could find Chris Herman, and I couldn't see where he was at because he was actually lower down into the canyon, and that was a whole nother incident that I wasn't part of that day. And then just basically by the time I got back up and helped load him on the helicopter, was taken off the incident after that. And not sure what else went on as far as the rescue procedures after that. Ended up in a leadership position by accident, basically, because I knew what I needed. I knew I needed help. We were having problems with the radios. I had an unfamiliar foreman with me. He's usually used to working with the ground crews. And I mean, you've got to think to yourself too that you can't always rely on your supervisor or other crew members also, because the ones who are in charge, they may be the victim at this point, and you may need to take over at that point to start making stuff happen. So I feel everyone on the crew should know who they're working for, how to get a hold of somebody, and how to request and get help when you need it.